Hello and welcome to Foodocracy For Her. Foodocracy For Her is India's longest running podcast on featuring and focusing on women in the F&B business, food and beverage business. I'm your host, Kalyan Karmakar. And today I'm going to get to you a young chef whose name is Kartikeya Ratan. And she runs Kiki and Pastor. So we're going to hear her story in a few minutes. And we've got Kartikeya joining us. So Kartikeya has joined us already while I was doing the introduction. It's my fault in terms of which link I'm using and whatnot. Of course, you can say that taco is like fast food and therefore it's fast arrival. But welcome, Kartikeya. It's been an absolute pleasure to. I think yesterday was my third opportunity to try what you've been doing in Kiki and Pastor. So great. First time was when you did the pop up with Soul Company. Right?
Yes. That was during the pandemic when I
Yes.
was still doing it from home, and it was like
Hmm.
a great trial run.
Yeah.
And we were fortunate to collaborate and send it to you and send it to a bunch of people.
Yeah, it was
So it's
lovely.
been
And I
quite a
remember
journey so far.
I remember using all the condiments and all of that. In fact, before I go any further, I don't know about the folks watching it, but I just need to know a bit more. So first of all, like you told me before we started, it's tacos
Yes,
with the
tacos.
S. No, so
No,
the S
a
is silent. Yeah.
singular is taco, and like plural is tacos.
Okay, but singular is spelled TACOS or CO.
TACO.
CO.
TACO.
Okay, great. Okay, so that's done about. So now, sitting in India, we have exposure to different types of wraps, as one would call it. The taco, of course, is like not an entirely rolled one, but in
Yes.
Calcutta, we have grown up to the rolls, which are like the maida paratha, which could be with egg, it could be with chicken or mutton. Depending on whether you're in the suburbs or whether you're in the central parts, it could either be like if you're using chicken or mutton, it could be a curry, and there could also be red and yellow sauce, pretending to be tomato chili, and then nimbu. If you're in the central parts of Calcutta, where the kathi rolls originated, then it's kebab and nimbu and maybe mirchi, green chopped chili.
Hmm. Hmm.
Then Frankie's, of course, we know in Mumbai, the curry with the vinegar and all of that. We've seen the rumali roti, kebab tikka wraps, and also India's seen a fair bit of shawarmas
Yeah.
with chips inside, without chips. So, is there a sort of a metric for taco? Like, is there a certain philosophy to it?
Yeah, I think so. Like what I've noticed, and what we also have adapted to in our delivery model is there's always a tortilla or a bread.
Hmm.
There's a meat filling. There's some sort of a salsa that goes over it.
Hmm.
And then there is the raw onion, the raw coriander, or pickles, or just a squeeze of lime.
Hmm.
And if you're sitting in a taqueria and eating it fresh, you will get the salsas, you'll get the lime, you'll get the onion and the coriander always on the side so that you can put it as per
Uh,
your liking. So what you initially get is just the tortilla with the meat on it. And then you can do your little thing. And if you want it spicy, you put your habanero salsa. If you're someone who doesn't like spice, you just try like whatever mild salsa there is. With the delivery model, we had to adapt a little bit to that so that the tortillas don't become soggy. So
hmm.
what we've started doing is we built this mole called the chil mole, and we've created a salsa verde jam. So we actually add pectin in it so that
Okay.
it forms almost like a layer between the meat and the tortilla so that it doesn't get soggy during delivery, because we're looking at least a 30-minute timeline
Yeah.
before someone eats it. So that was our way of making sure that the tortilla still remains soft, and neither does it become hard nor does it become soggy. Um, but that was the only little tweak that we did, which would have been probably not in our mind if we were doing it fresh. But it does
Yes.
add that extra flavor where, like, even if you say don't add the salsa that we give on the
Yeah.
side, it still has all the salsas in it.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
it's not like a
I didn't
wet
need to add
salsa.
it really. It was quite
Yeah.
complete, and I must say that it remained very soft and this thing. And is this something which you sort of stumbled upon yourself in terms of creating like a mole and a different viscous surface so that
So there are many moles that I tasted when I was in Oaxaca. So they have like I think maybe 7 or 8 varieties, and each family also makes it very differently.
so mole is what
Uh,
mole is the chocolate sort of thing. I mean,
Not
that's what we
only
know.
they have a green mole, they have a red mole, they have a black
Because
mole
here
that
we
has
know
some
chocolate
chocolate.
mole, because of the movie Chocolat and all
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. And they do add cocoa in the black mole, or like the mole that they usually make for the weddings or
Hmm.
for a special occasion, or when a child is born in the family. And that probably takes about 3-4 days to make. So it's a very special, it's like
Yes.
probably their version of so
Sorry, I missed that. Their version of. No, I can't.
yeah.
So you were saying that mole is their version of it. It reminded me a bit of sourpatel in a Christian wedding, cooked over 2 or 3
Yeah,
days.
and
But
like something like a dal makhni that they would make for like over a
ah,
period of time, and that they
hmm,
probably use a little bit of the old version of it also to add some character to the
yes,
mix. And so it has a lot of ingredients, and it's a very, very strong flavor. But there are different variations, like a green mole, like a mole verde, was maybe like a 45-minute preparation. A mole roja was like maybe like a 2-hour preparation. A mole alemandro, like that has almonds, that took like maybe 2-3 days. So
wow,
we made our version of a mole, which also has about I think 20-22 ingredients. What
wow,
we make here,
wow, and
and
yeah,
it's almost like a jam. Like
yeah,
we don't need to add anything to it. It has beans, it has sesame, it has jaggery, it has 2-3 types of chilies, and and it really adds that character to the pork carnitas that you've also tried, because
yes.
pork itself is such a flavorful meat that it needs like a strong match.
No,
So
it's yeah. I said that I was at the Avartana pop up recently, and one course was pork, and it was
hmm,
belly and like really fatty and all that, and it just seemed very
yeah,
dense. But beside that, they had the bedgi chili, like from the Karnataka, chutney. And when you
yeah,
added that, that's when the magic happened. But I didn't. I
yeah.
mean, you guys are chefs, so you know all of these things. I mean, for us, it's like wonder, surprise, and discovery. But I guess for you, it's also the skill and makes you. No, and it's very interesting because I drew another parallel because you were saying that the viscosity makes sure that the meat doesn't soak out of the juices.
Yeah.
So I was at this Nayaran Fire sort of counter which they've opened,
Hmm.
at and they have this sort of chicken, mutton, prawn dosas. So the chef told me that over there they would always start. It would have egg. So what would happen is that you'd have the dosa on which the egg forms the coating, and then
Yeah,
goes the non-veg because they said that otherwise the non-veg would drip. Which if you see even in the Calcutta egg mutton, egg chicken, the egg goes first. We're
yeah.
not going to talk so much about that. But it's really interesting, and also there were I noticed in your what you sent, there were two tacos. I mean, there were the two tortillas, and very very thin.
Yes.
So are they meant to have two, or so that it's more sturdy? You sent two.
So I did notice again, like different taquerias do it differently, but like most of them where like they put a lot of filling in it,
Hmm.
they'll always give you two tortillas, so that you either eat one and then whatever is left you can like kind of mop it
Ah,
up with the second one,
zero
or
waste.
you like literally make it into a longer taco. So like
Ah,
you can use the double tacos. For us,
wow.
the purpose was also because of delivery, in case
Yeah,
even in spite of putting the chilmole or the salsa verde, it still does become soggy. You
yeah,
have the option of using the second tortilla. So we thought of a few things because we had to adapt to the delivery model. Like for me, like I always thought like tacos are like pani puri. Like you make it, you have to eat it fresh. Like
yes, yes,
there's no room for delivery. But like,
yes.
so we tried the taco kits which we had sent you initially with the Soul Company. We have
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
tried
yeah, yeah. I
like
remember.
building the tacos.
And there was the blueprint and all of that. Yeah, it was.
Yes.
And when you had a lot of time on your hand during the lockdown, it was a nice way of spending time. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
So you can make your own tacos and then people feel involved in what they're eating, right? Like you're not
Yes,
like, okay,
yes,
this came and I just like had to gobble it up.
yes, yes. So you're leaving. You're making you're sort of giving an empowered customer. So yeah, and also the interesting thing about the taco is that if you look at other traditional sort of wrap models which exist around the world, including the souvlaki and all that, here the taco is never closed. I mean, it's like it's like an envelope, right? But you don't like roll and close it. Um, right.
Hello.
Yeah, so I lost you for a minute, but I was saying that the
Yeah.
taco is always like it's like a kept slightly open, is it?
Yeah. I mean, they serve it to you flat usually, and then
Oh.
you pick it up. And there's there are a lot of memes now, I feel, where like they teach you like how to eat a taco. Like you're not never supposed to like turn the taco, you're supposed to like tilt your head. Because the taco
Yeah,
should always remain straight, because otherwise you're going to lose out on the juices.
yeah.
Uh, so so the
I think,
burrito is a wrap technically, but
huh,
it's not very traditional Mexican. It's more either towards the north of Mexico or southern USA.
the
Uh,
Tex-Mex, southern USA would be Tex-Mex.
Tex-Mex or like the Baja California
Okay,
area as well.
and a burrito will always have rice in it. Is I mean,
So
um,
I've eaten a few burritos that only have beans and meat in it.
okay,
Rice, I think, is so that it becomes a meal for most
okay.
people. Otherwise, rice and beans usually are served on the side also.
You've also done some very interesting vegetarian options. I mean, one is of course for Navratri and the avocado and asparagus, or the sweet potato and the the smoked sort of oyster chilies. But before as well. So in Mexico, do vegetarian options not exist at all? Um, because
Uh,
we've seen in Europe, especially like Berlin and all of that, there's a fair bit
yeah,
of veganism. Even Paris, when I
yeah,
went this year versus 4 years back, there's a
yeah.
lot of veganism coming in. California, of course, and even this thing. So
So
is
what I
Mexico?
noticed
Yeah.
in Mexico City, because there's a huge influx of expats coming and living there, and there are actually vegan taquerias there now. There was something
Hmm.
called Taqueria Madre, which was a completely vegan taco stand.
Wow.
So they are doing a lot of vegan food. And what I realized and noticed in Oaxaca when I went for we went for like this historic walk around the city, and the person who was taking us was very interested in the culture, and like how frugality is a big part of Oaxacan culture. And he was telling us that animal husbandry, poultry, dairy, all that did not exist in Oaxaca at all. It was a very, very poor state because they were robbed of all their wealth.
Okay.
And it was actually vegan. They didn't have dairy, they didn't have meat, they didn't have
So
chicken. So
who
like
robbed it? The Spanish? Who robbed them? The
Spanish,
Spanish?
Americans, like they were taken over by a lot of
Oh,
countries
okay.
in different parts of time.
Hmm.
And so Oaxaca itself has got meat and dairy in very recently, as compared to
Hmm.
like the rest of Mexico. So when I went to Oaxaca, I noticed a lot of cactus being eaten, a lot of mushrooms being eaten, potatoes being a large part of their diet, and a lot of vegetables. And they have only two cheese. They have Oaxaca cheese, which is like the pulled mozzarella kind of
Okay.
thing, which is the stringy cheese, which was also in the asparagus taco, and the crumbled cotija cheese, which is a lot like our paneer.
Ah. Okay.
So the rest of the cuisine is more or less vegan, and they just add elements of meat. So like the lamb, which is cooked, like
Hmm.
the birria lamb, which has also become famous. Um, that was all that came a lot later. Yucatan was a lot more animal focused. So they did a lot of, you know, suckling pig, baby lamb, beef, all of that. But Oaxaca and like the northern part of Mexico was more or less predominantly vegetarian or vegan.
It's very interesting that you said that because as I was listening to you, I was thinking of India, or even specifically, say Calcutta, where I grew up, and I grew up
Yeah.
in the 80s and the 90s. because I came to Calcutta in 1980. So one was that India per se was a milk deficit country, if you know that, till
Yeah.
Operation Flood and all that. So even when we were growing up, there was a time when there was no supply of butter from coming in from Amul, so it used to be rationalized. Milk used to be this thing, so milk would be only for essentials, which is like drinking milk for kids, and
Yeah.
our tea in Calcutta is also with very little milk in it. And
Yeah.
some of the mithai walas always sound milk. I wonder why. But that was seen as an equivalent. So if you're not having a cup of glass of milk, go and have a couple of rasgullas or sandwiches. So that
Yeah.
was right. Also, if you see non-vegetarianism in an Indian context, um, the meat, which is primarily mutton, was the more expensive thing, and chicken even more expensive. So
Yeah.
it would be a once a week sort of thing, and with one or two pieces per person. I mean, then
Yeah.
after that, like if it's Bengal, Maharashtra, then it's fish and so on. But again, like small amounts of it, unlike say the West, where it could be a whole steak and so on. So it's interesting to
Yes.
see how and
The
you're talking of,
proportion of your meal from veg
yeah.
to carbs to meat is the opposite almost between
Yeah, carbs is the
the
highest in our side, right?
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's the same for Mexico as well. I find a lot of similarity between that eating pattern.
Yeah. In fact, in Mumbai, ever since I moved in, which was 97,
Hmm.
there've been flashes of Mexican food coming in. Back in 97, there was Sheriff. I think
Mm-hmm.
in Bandra, then the president had a Mexican restaurant. But then again, there was Sante or Sancho's or whatever. But
Sancho's. Yeah.
yeah. But I've never really been able to take off, say, compared to even Thai or Japanese or even
Yeah.
Lebanese has
That's
not
true.
really taken off, though there's now. When you're telling me about the second taco often being tortilla often being used to wipe off stuff. So
Yeah.
again, I had a very Calcutta flashback moment, a very guilty secret. But I was like really this thing when I saw someone on Twitter also write about it.
Yeah.
Then I realized this everyone has it. So basically, when you're having the Calcutta roll, then
Mm-hmm.
there's a paper over here. So
Yeah.
so if this is the whole roll, the lower part will have the paper. So when you finish eating everything, whether it's egg or then the rest of it, but there's always onion, there's nimbu, there's mirchi, chaat masala, and they could even be
Yeah.
the sauces. So when you finish everything and the roll is over, then you upturn the thing and you suck it up. So you're sort of getting the last bit of sauce. Lost her again. Yeah. Yeah, I think your camera froze at the idea of that. But what I was saying is that when it gets over, the roll you finish eating and you keep tearing the paper as you eat,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then it's just a stub. Then you upturn it because the inside of the paper has all the sauce. So you're getting the max of your rupees. So I think
Yes.
we all okay. Listen,
I think we've done that with our tips Frankie as well in
yeah,
Bombay.
yeah. And Tifsangi is quite, But listen, I mean, this is not, a dummy's guide to taco program, but it's about you and your life, and I want to take a segue from the fact that you've had to adapt to a delivery model because there's your large part of your career before that has been in restaurants or hotels and in India and abroad and in fine dining things to versus going to the cloud kitchen. So let's go back to the Kartikeya origin story. You studied in IHM Mumbai, right? So
Yes.
what drove you there? What made you want to take up catering? Uh,
Uh, so I think I was very clear, I think by the eighth or ninth standard itself, that I kind of wanted to become a chef. And it
okay.
didn't come from like, me cooking in my grandmother's kitchen, or it didn't come from any
It's
sort
a, it's
of
a home science, not because it's like home science and that's what
no,
a
it was
girly
very
thing
like
back in the day. Yeah.
not really. Like, of course, I like to cook at home as well, but
Yeah.
it didn't come from the idea of like, oh, I want to, romanticize the idea of cooking. But it
Yeah.
came from a very like, I think I like this industry. I like the sense of urgency. I like the sense of, You have to
What
be
was your
particular about
exposure to
certain.
the industry? I mean, when you're saying that you like the
None
sense of
actually,
urgency,
none actually.
like for
But
example, if someone who wants to be a doctor has probably
yeah,
seen doctors while growing up and says that, okay, I want to be
yeah,
like this person, cure people of malaria or
exactly. And
whatever.
I come from a family of only doctors. So everyone, including both my grandparents, my
You're a
sister,
Bombay girl. You're a Bombay
I'm a
girl.
Bombay girl. Yeah, born and
Okay.
brought up.
Okay.
And
Mumbai. Yes.
Mumbai girl. So I came from a family of doctors, but I was very sure that I could not do that. Like
Okay.
studying was not my jam. But I was very, very sure I needed to do something hands-on. So like for a while, probably when I was younger, I toyed with the idea of becoming an architect, maybe,
Okay.
or something else. But like I think by 8th, 9th standard, there was like a fair bit of certainty where I was like, I think I want to be a chef.
But that's lovely,
And
huh? By 8th, 9th standard having clarity,
yeah,
that's fabulous.
and my mom was like, how can you be so sure? Like, what's that about? And she had a friend who was actually a professor at IHM Mumbai.
Oh,
And she was like, you know what, go spend a day there, like go talk
yeah.
to her. And she tried her level best to like scare the shit out of me. And she
Who, the
was like,
friend? The friend.
the professor, she's
The mom's
Maitri ma'am.
friend.
She actually, yeah.
Yeah.
And she actually took me around college. She was like, here's our bakery, here's our kitchen, this is what you have to do. You have to work like 12 hours, 14 hours. And I was just like, yeah, okay, okay. And then she was like, okay, you didn't get scared, right? I was like, no, not really. Like, I kind of
Yeah.
like without
Did your
having that
mom's
exposure.
did your mom set her up to it? I'm sorry, I'm interjecting. But
She
did your
she was
mom
just
tell her
like she was
that
just like
is
give her the hard truth. I think
okay?
that was their plan. They were like,
Uh,
if she doesn't get scared by this, then she's fine.
uh,
So I think that was the only thing that they wanted to do. And
yeah,
then I was in Xavier, so my junior college, I'd taken up science to keep options open as parents want you to.
yeah.
Um,
Once, yeah. Okay, you're back.
I was
Yeah.
I had taken up science to yeah. I'd taken up science to keep my options open as most parents want you to, but then I was fairly certain. So I think my parents were just like, okay, fine, go give your entrance exam. And you can decide where you want to go. And IHM Bombay was the obvious choice at that point because it was the best in the country and it was close to home. I didn't want to move anywhere. It was not a decision that I had to really think about too much.
Yes. Yeah, I've lost you again. Yeah. Is a problem at your end or my end?
Yeah, I don't.
I'm just going to try switching my network. Let's see if it's better. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? No? Hi, can you hear me now? Yeah, are we back? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I don't know where the problem is, but it's fine. So I'm just switching on again. I'll tell you where you were. You were talking of the fact that IHM was the best, and you're also based in Bombay. So it's sort of
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, yeah. Yeah, my my producer, little Nimki, my junior cat, is happily looking outside. And he should be here. I mean, they're the guys who handle the technology. Anyway, so Kartikeya, you were saying that IHM was and is probably still right the best in the country, IHM Mumbai,
Yeah.
or at least one of the best. And you're also in Mumbai, so it sort of made an obvious
Yeah,
choice, but
it
it's
was
not
an
that.
obvious choice.
But it's not that the choice is given to you on a platter, right? I mean, it's like IIT or IIM. It depends on your score where you're placed,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's not that you go in and say that, okay, this is the IHM I want.
So we had
And
our entrance exam, which was like English, math, logic, GK,
hmm,
um, for which like I have to admit I didn't prepare very, very hard. Like I know people who did classes for it after their 12th standard exams and all. I
wow.
went to the US for a holiday. But I also aware that it's not that hard a test, so it
Okay.
was okay.
Yeah,
So
I guess
I
also it
came back.
depends on like if you are already academically oriented versus not. I guess that makes a difference.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, I'll study for it, but
Yeah.
I like even when I was in the 10th standard and 12th standard, I never really took like tuitions for all subjects. I was not that kind of a student.
Great.
I was always like, okay, I'll study as much as I can by myself, and that's fine.
Hmm. Hmm.
So even for this, the logic was the same. But thankfully and gratefully, I got into IHM Bombay. It wasn't. It's a all India exam, so it
Yes.
sometimes can be a gamble.
True. True. So how was that experience of being in ISM? Okay, I have no idea what's happening, guys. Yeah. Okay, we're back again. Yeah. So how was that? So you worked for years and now you're running your own thing. I mean, I don't want you to sound like one veteran, but if you think back now, like what was the key sort of learning or takeouts which you took out of IHM, and which is why perhaps if someone asks you whether they should go to IHM or a hospitality course which is equivalent, if you were to advise someone to actually do the course, why would you? I mean, assuming you would.
I think it puts a lot of things into perspective right from the beginning. So
Hmm.
if I know a lot of friends, especially abroad, where they haven't had that formal education, but they still kind of start from becoming a cook and then go forward. But IHM really like put things into perspectives on how it was going to be. Like
Okay.
you're not going to have it this way and that way. And I did a hotel management course, right? So we had to do all the other departments as well. Um, so it becomes a lot to set forth.
You're back. You're back.
So
Yes.
yeah, so it becomes a lot more clearer to just know what you're going to be doing. You have a lot more respect for other departments when you're running an organization as well. Like I worked in a hotel for the first 3 years of my career at the Taj in Colaba, but
Yeah. I mean, I
after
like
that,
how you said our hotel is probably one of the most landmark hotels in the country, right? I mean,
yeah,
the
and I was
spotlight is
fortunate
always on
enough
the
to like
Taj,
start my career there.
and at the
But
Zodiac Grill, I believe, right? I mean,
at the Zodiac Grill, yeah, and that was
yeah.
definitely my top choice. Like even when we were in
Yes.
college, you were like, if you want to do European food, you have to work at Zodiac Grill.
So
There's no
you wanted
other
to do
way to start.
European food. You wanted to do European food, right?
Yeah, I was fairly certain from the beginning that I liked the French style of training because it's more methodical. Like
And it's the mother science of modern culinary arts. In a way, it's a
yeah,
mother science of, yeah.
exactly. Like even now today, I'm doing Mexican food, but I take a lot of learning from my roots of the French cooking, right? Like even when you're talking about the building the layers of the taco, or
Hmm.
you're talking about like how you're cooking the meat, there's a lot of nuances that you can still take from French cooking.
Hmm.
So it was important for me to understand that okay, if I'm going to do French cooking, if I'm going to go into the European style of cooking, I need to be at the best place.
Yes.
So so when I applied to jobs, like campus placements was the only way at that time. And I think when we passed out, that is 2011, the best restaurants in the city or the country were in hotels.
Yes.
Like the scene has shifted a lot today. Like in the last decade, it has shifted a lot where like you see really world class restaurants outside of
Standalones. Yeah.
hotels as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at that time, it was like you get a job at the Oberoi or the ITC or the Taj, you do a
Yes.
management training program, you work in one of their restaurants, and that's how you start your career, which I think I still advise a lot of young cooks to do that because I think it gives you structure
Mhm.
and those kind of constraints that when you're a young cook, you're only concentrating on the skill and on the craft,
Yes.
and you don't have to worry about mechanics, and you don't have to worry about something going wrong in housekeeping or anything. Like you're just with blinkers on, you're focused on the food.
Wow.
So I think that was very very helpful for us and for me personally, because I mean Chef Oberoi was very involved in the Zodiac Grill as well, but he
Yes.
also gave the young cooks a lot of freedom for us to experiment.
Wow. Because
So like
it had its menu, right? I mean, the dariol
yeah,
and all that. We were lucky to, Kanaz and I,
yeah,
to eat before, the sudden closure because we were doing a staycation at the Taj. So we said we'll do dinner at Zodiac Grill. And then a couple of months later, not because of us, it shut down.
yeah,
And this time when
yeah,
we did a staycation there, we ate at the other one, Wasabi. So the
yeah.
two of them ticked off. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember that even when I was working there, so I was around the time the 25th anniversary was to happen. And by then I had become a chef de partie. And I used to be making the camembert dariol every day. And, after a while you make it every day and you're like, okay, it's like work. You forget that, every time someone comes in, for them to experience that is a
Yes,
big
yes,
deal. So,
yes.
like sometimes like the managers would like specially take us out and be like,
Yeah.
no, hear what the guest has to say about your food. And like I
Yes.
didn't invent that dish. I had nothing to do with its inception or anything. I was just the person executing it. But it brings you that kind of joy and like pride in your work on a day-to-day basis. So just experiencing that as a young cook, I think, kind of um gives you a sense of like it's higher than just feeding people. It's a bigger goal than just coming in and doing a job on a daily basis.
A lot of
So I
pride.
think,
I'm sensing a lot of pride in one's work. I mean, good pride. Pride
yeah,
in one's, yeah,
pride,
yeah.
and there's like gratification, like okay, you're working hard, you're working long hours, you don't get offs on the weekends, but it didn't matter after a while. Also,
So the podcast is not complete till I say I stop and say, okay, I have to stop to let Baby Loaf out or Nimki in or whatever. So I let Baby Loaf in. Okay, but you're telling me about how seeing people's reaction to the Dariol and things like that made you really realize that So go ahead.
yeah, like it definitely felt like you were contributing to someone's special moment, special dinner. Maybe people were just coming in to celebrate their birthday or like celebrate like a promotion, but just to add that kind of value to someone's life was like gratifying enough. And we had
Yeah.
a great set of young chefs. Like I remember we were about 5 or 7 of us at Zodiac Grill, and there were like veterans as well, like people who had worked at the Taj and at Zodiac Grill since the day it started. And so we had like a great mix of chefs who were able to give us that sort of inspiration the hotel signifies. Hello.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I only got locked out of my recording. Okay, yeah, yeah. So you were, yes.
So I feel like we had a great mix of like veterans who were able to give us like the significance of what we were doing, but
Hmm.
also like a great mix of like people of our generation, like my age and like maybe a few years older or younger, who were able to like innovate and like who were able to like just think outside the box and be like, okay, like what more can we do?
Also
What
bring in the
can like
energy. Also
Zodiac
bring in
Grill
the energy.
mean to people now that it's like almost 25 years old?
Also bring in the energy. In fact, now that you said this, I must. So when we stayed at the Taj the first time, it was Kanaz's birthday a few
Yeah,
years back. So first of all, like for a Mumbai person like she is, staying at the Taj and the palaces, like for me, a Calcutta person, what staying at the Oberoi Grand is. So we'd
yeah.
already done the Grand, so we said it's time to do the Taj, and dinner was obviously at the Zodiac and Grill, and I mean it's not. I think it was my first time or her second time, but it's not that we had the menu of Zodiac Grill on our thing. So I remember it was one of the elderly sort of waiters. So he said that you must order the Darials. We said fine, and I was not really at that time even a professional food writer, just a blogger. So it's not
Yeah.
that I knew anything about the Darial, but I remember that when we had it, you're exactly. I mean, it just felt so. special. And also, what I found interesting is that that you were saying that there were veterans, and then there were like you guys bringing in the fresh energy, and how it's this thing. So you were at your dream job, dream company. So it's like you've got into your top institute which you wanted, course which you wanted, the hotel which you wanted, restaurant which you wanted. Then you went to Goa, right? I mean, I was following your
Yeah.
career path. So
So
what
so
happened?
it was so what happened was actually when I was working at the Zodiac Grill, I went for a holiday to the US.
Hmm.
And this was also the time when all our food research used to come from all the best restaurant cookbooks. So I
Okay.
used to have the 11 Madison Park book, and I used to have like the French Laundry book or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
when I was going to the US, my thought was, okay, why don't I just go and stage there for a day? Like
Hmm.
write them an email and ask them like if I can just come and see how they do things. And I was fortunate enough that when I went to New York, 11 Madison Park replied saying, yeah, sure, you can come in for a day, we'd love to have you.
Hmm.
And I went in for a day, and it was like a whole different world. And I was like, what have I been doing so
Yeah.
far? And like, I need to be here. And like an Alice in Wonderland moment.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Hmm. Go ahead.
so
Go
when
ahead. You're
I
saying it was Alice in
so when I
Wonderland.
was yeah, and I was there for a day, and I remember at the end of and at that point it was just for that one day experience. It was with no intention to like get a job or find a job there, because I had a job back home. So I was like, okay, I just want to see how people do things differently here. And at the end of the day, the sous chef was like, oh, they made me make a dish. Like he made me cook a chicken dish. That's what they do with most stages who come. It
Okay.
was like this dish. Well, not the decision maker to hire people, but if you don't mind, you can come in another and the chef can talk to you as well.
Yeah. Continue.
Yeah, and so he asked me to make another dish, and I think I made a fish the second
Okay.
time because they just give you like a chicken, fillet of fish or a chicken breast, and they like do
Okay,
what
so
you
it's
want.
you have to do your own thing. It's not that you have to replicate
Yeah,
a
no,
recipe from the.
nothing.
Okay, okay, okay. Yeah,
So it was just like a day, right? Like they're
yeah.
like, okay, you've seen how we work. Like, why don't you make something for us? Like you have an hour, like make something. And it was a little overwhelming when I first experienced it, like on the first day that I was there, because I was like, oh my god, like what do I make here? And like I
Yeah.
remember I walked into their walk-in fridge, and it was winter in New York, and like there was nothing that I could recognize. Like all the produce was so exotic. I was just like, I don't know what to do with this. And I remember I made like
And you might have
some
had a
sous vide
literal
chicken.
brain freeze. You might have had a
Yeah,
literal brain freeze
exactly.
because
I
you're in the
was like,
fridge and in winter of New York.
yeah,
Yeah.
and thankfully, like the second time I went, and when the head chef was there, and he asked me to make something with fish. At that time, I was a little prepared because you think of like a couple of things that you
Hmm.
can do if he gives you like a fillet of fish or another chicken breast. So it was fine, but they liked the dish, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we can see you part of the team, but at the moment we're obviously fully staffed, but you can take my card and you can keep in touch."
Oh wow.
And I think I got obsessed with that idea. I was like, if he said that, I'm going to follow up on this.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I came back to Bombay, and I remember uh, obviously wanting to quit because I'd spent almost 3 years at Zodiac Grill, and I was like, okay, it's time to move on.
Hmm.
And I didn't know when I'm going to hear back from 11 Madison Park, because obviously they have a lot of applicants, they have a lot of employees, people are not quitting every day. So I kept in touch with the head chef. Like I would probably email him on a regular basis and be like, hey, when do you think you have a job opening? uh,
Yeah.
but meanwhile I was like, okay, I'm still going to like move forward in my career. And to where Virendra and Akriti, they were running a fine dining establishment, and they also were like ex Taj and ex Bombay and ex Delhi. So it
Hmm.
kind of like fell in place where they were looking for a fresh change as well. They were looking for a young chef to come in and like move things around. They were doing a lot of I think traditional French dishes, but they wanted to play around with local produce at that
And
time.
and which
So
restaurant was this?
it just kind of
Which restaurant was this?
every
Because
in
RFV,
Goa.
no, because the connection's a bit stable, so
Yeah,
unstable. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
RFV, yeah.
yeah. So I remember like chatting with them, and they were like, we've never really done this. Like, we've not had like young chefs come in and do anything like this. But why don't we try it out? Like, and at that point, I had nothing to lose because I was still waiting to hear back from 11 Madison Park, and I was anyway wanting to quit the Taj. So I was like, okay, I have like this 7 to 8 month time period where I can take something on.
Hmm.
And I did that, and it was like an amazing experience because you go from like what I was saying, like the comfort of being that young chef in a organized setup where like you can only look at your food and only concentrate on a day-to-day basis on your food, to like almost like they would like to call it a mom and pop joint. It's obviously not. It's a fine dining restaurant,
But maybe
but
like a
they're
startup. I mean, not a I mean, versus leaving a Unilever, Colgate, and
yeah,
joining a new age,
joining a smaller
Facebook.
establishment
Yeah.
where you can actually see everything, whether you
Hmm.
want to delve into the maintenance and housekeeping and service side of it is your choice then, but
Hmm.
it's not like you're sheltered.
Yes.
And it was literally that. It was like, okay, you want to go into the market, you want to put something on the menu, you want to do a special event, you want to do a special menu, like, and everything happened uh along with Akriti, who was the owner, and she has like a great like food mind,
Hmm.
and Virendra, who's like very service oriented. So it was a great like relationship
Combination.
we had. Like, we're still friends today.
Hmm.
um but it was a great experience, for a person who's like 23 and never really managed cooks. Like, they were initially, I remember they were a little like skeptical. They were like, you're the first girl to come into the kitchen
Oh,
here.
wow.
So I was like, oh, okay. Like, I wasn't nervous, they were
Uh,
a little bit.
uh.
And they were like, okay, let's see their reaction. Like, we don't have to tell them what you're here for. we'll just kind of like we'll just kind of say you're spending a few days here. And I was like, yeah,
Hmm.
that's fine by me. And like, they realized after like a week or 2 weeks, like, there was no awkwardness amongst the team. So it became very like smooth sailing. And like,
Hmm.
by the time I left, I remember all of us were kind of like sad that I was leaving. And the experience was obviously like something that I could build on much later as well. Like, when I worked at other restaurants, when I worked even at 11 Madison Park, it was something that really like helped me build forward. um so yeah, everything like like, it's like you don't know how it's going to affect the bigger picture, but everything kind of adds
I,
value to.
yeah, and look at you today, because today you are a businesswoman. I mean, you're not just a
Exactly.
chef. I mean, you're
Yeah,
you're a businesswoman and a chef. So
yeah,
so did 11 Madison happen right after that?
yeah. So while I was there, I got the email like probably like just when the season was finishing up, and anyway, or every closes down for the summer.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I was to go to New York in May. So I kind of like, had that conversation, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to Bombay, do my visa stuff, because that's a lengthy process as well
Yes,
to go on
yes,
a J1.
yes.
Um, so I did that. Thankfully, everything again went on smoothly, and I was in New York, I think, by mid-May or something like that. So it was right in time for spring.
And you were a line cook there, so you
Yeah.
were not like one of those people who go there once and then come back saying, spend time at 11 Madison Park or something. You were like part of the team, right?
Sorry, I've lost you for a
No, I'm
second.
I'm, I'm
I
saying
can't
that you were part of
hear you.
the core cooking team.
Hello.
Yeah, can you hear me now? No, so as a
Yeah,
line
now I
chef,
can. Yes.
as a line chef, you're
Yeah.
part of the team, which is like
Yeah.
cooking, right? I mean,
Yeah.
no, because there are also a lot of
Yeah.
people now who say work for a few days and then they come back and say that they've worked at
Yeah.
Noma or this, that, or whatever. So tell me
Yeah.
what does being a line chef entail, or what did you gain out of the?
I thought I was sucked into a cyclone.
Hmm.
I didn't know what hit me and what I was hit with, because the the kind of speed, the kind of precision, the kind of attention to detail required like you think working in a Zodiac Grill and having worked in a fine dining restaurant,
Yeah.
and at that time the best restaurant in the country, really like put me in a good place month. And to be very honest, I don't remember my first month there, because it was really like I was sucked into a cyclone. Because I think my head chef also in some like in some way was enjoying it. He was like, okay, let's see what she can do. So like I think he had told me like, yeah, for a week or two we'll put you in prep, and then we'll put you on the station. So how 11 Madison Park worked was they would give you like one dish at a time. So you are entirely responsible from start to finish of one entire dish of the course. So it's a 14-course menu. So you have 14 stations, lunch and dinner.
Wow.
So I was responsible for one dish in the garde-manger. This is in my second week. The first week he was like, okay, we'll put you in prep for a week or two and then we'll see. And like a week later he was already like, okay, we're putting you on the station. And I was like, okay, that sounds interesting. Let's see what happens. And I mean, I failed, I've cried, I've like, thought like, what the hell am I doing here? Like the first month was a blur. And I think the most supportive sous chefs who were just like, I think they saw me struggling or trying so hard that they themselves were like, you know what, we'll help you. Like, what do
And
you
I'm
need?
sure you must not be the first sort of chef to go through that experience. No,
exactly. For them, this was normal.
Yeah, you must be thinking that, oh God, what am I doing? Like I used to sometimes feel like that when I was in quality research in the beginning, that I'm like, hopeless. But probably everyone felt like that. It's just that we don't realize.
Exactly. Like, so exactly for them, it was very normal. It was like, yeah, she's the first
No, but
time.
I can imagine for you, it must have been like, multiplied like many times. And you're in New York and you've left Taj, you've left Bombay. You're so, it's almost like that Subhash Ghai movie for this or something.
Yeah, exactly. So I remember after the first month, or maybe after like my second month, I kind of settled in and I'm like, it's okay. Like, you're going to like make mistakes. You're going to like, move forward. You're going to probably like, make blunders out of like whatever. But there is a bunch of people there to just like support you and make sure you succeed. And I was told that in as many words also. Like my head chef was like, make mistakes, it's fine. We're here to support you.
So
it's
not
fine.
like Gordon Ramsay. What you're doing?
No, I mean in the moment, of course, they would scream, but like, you could also tell they were coming from a place where, like, at the end of the day, it was a bigger motive, right? Like the goal was to make your guests happy.
Absolutely,
it was not
absolutely.
whether it was
if you failed, someone had to stand up for you.
Exactly.
Like in that third course of the 14-course meal, if it's not there.
Exactly. Yeah. And like it can't be like, your lunch service was better than your dinner service, or your dinner service was, it's okay that it didn't happen well. So there was a lot on the line for them as well.
Yes.
So, and most cooks there, I realized, were very, very young. They were all like below the age of like 30 for sure. And a lot of people that joined even with me, because a lot of international cooks would join. Like I remember, like I made such good friends with people who joined around the same time as me, because everyone comes on that J1 visa for the year. So there was a French person, there was an Italian, there was a Mexican, and my head chef, I think, liked that kind of cultural exchange as well, because for him it was like an anthropology class happening in that kitchen. So he was like, even family meal became eclectic. Like, I would sometimes make Indian food. The Mexican chef would make like her mole or whatever she wanted to make. The French girl would make whatever she wanted to make on different
Did
days.
you ever make rajma for the Mexican chef?
I made dal makhani. I didn't make rajma, but I did make dal makhani once. And I remember also Chef Hussein used to be at 11 Madison Park right before me. So
Bombay Canteen.
Bombay Canteen. So we didn't really cross paths, but like I remember when I went there, they were like, "Oh, you're from India. Do you know Hussein?" And I was like, "Not really."
And he was Hussein, I know.
Yeah. And at that point, I was like, I had to fill big shoes, because he had done extremely well in his 1 year at 11 Madison Park. And everybody loved him, and like they were like, "Oh, he's the only Indian we know." So like, who are you? and do you know him? And I've actually told him that. I was like, for me, it was like kind of overwhelming to be like greeted with like, as soon as I went in, they were like, do you know Hussein? Do you know how to make biryani like Hussein? Because he probably made some biryani for them
Yeah,
at family meal.
yeah. And he's such a
So
sweet guy. I'm sure he's such a sweet guy. I'm sure he must have felt bad
yeah.
for making it tough for you unknowingly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for him he wasn't like he wasn't trying, right? Like for him, he
I
was
know, I
doing
know.
his bit, he
Yeah.
left, and like he didn't know what happened. And I was just like, yeah, I know, like
Yeah.
people would come up to me and be like, do you know how to make biryani? And I was like, I'm sure I can, but I don't know what is your reference point, so
Yeah.
then I would find out like, okay, if Hussein made them like family meal or whatever, and I would be like, okay, I'll make my version of what I know, but
Bombay
whatever.
biryani. Lucky
Yeah.
Kafir bhai biryani.
Yeah. So I mean, it was definitely a roller coaster of a year, but like, and a lot of people ask me, like, like, what do you think was your biggest learning or whatever? And I was like,
Oh, I was going to ask
if
you
there
that.
was,
Sorry.
and I wish I could point it out, because I
Yeah.
feel like I transformed as a person, not just as a cook, because the way I looked at food, the way I started living, I think the way I started thinking about even my own personal career, it kind
Yeah.
of changed, right? Because thereon I was like, what next? You At that point, I think 11 Madison was like the fourth best restaurant in the world. And honestly, that didn't matter to me. Like, that's not why I was there. For me, it was a lot to do with what value it adds to my career, and what I was able to offer back to them in that 1 year that I was there. Was I able to add any value at all? And that's how I started looking at my career trajectory as well. Like, okay, like the next place, like I remember when I was leaving and my chef was like, what do you want to do next? Because I'll write you a recommendation. And I was like, I want to go to Azur Mendi. Because I want to understand sustainability a little more. Because I think the only thing that pinched me when I was there was that as a 3 Michelin star restaurant, how much you waste food.
True.
And
Yeah.
coming from India, it really pinches you.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
see,
I've heard
like,
of chefs who worked in some of the restaurants in India. I mean, no point taking names, but
yeah.
they also felt that I mean, a lot is wasted to reach that
Yeah,
level.
because you're looking for that perfect slice and that perfect dice. So like, what happens to everything that's around it? And today, like I went back last year, and they've like obviously completely transformed their ethos and their
Even vegan
food
in
values.
or or
Yeah,
vegetarian.
they're completely vegan now, and they're like sourcing from smaller farms. So I think that value has also changed,
I think the
and
world is
I'm so
also
glad for
changing
it.
after the pandemic, and I
Exactly,
think we are
exactly.
becoming
And
more
I feel
conscious.
like that transformation has also taken those many years for any first world country to understand that, for any 3 Michelin star restaurant to understand that, while we are looking for perfectionism, there's also it's also nutrition.
Yes.
Because I remember a chef of mine told me this, and I don't remember who it was, and I tell this to my cooks now. And he told me, like, if you're a chef, if you're a cook, and something perfectly edible is going in the garbage, you're not a very good cook. Like, why is it in the trash? If you can't serve it to a guest, you can eat it. You can put it in staff meal. If you can't put it in staff meal, you can give it to an animal. But why does it have to land up in your trash can? So, and that really stuck with me, and I was like, okay, that sort of wastage, it really like affected me. But at the same time, you're like, okay, I'm a small part of a bigger machinery here.
Yeah,
So
I
like,
mean,
you kind of
it's
have
like
to,
if you're a soldier. If you're a soldier, I mean,
yeah,
you've not decided why the war has to be fought, but your job is to
correct,
help your team
exactly.
win or army
So
win.
I remember going to Azur Mendi and understanding, a different perspective of a three
This
Michelin
was when
star
you went to
restaurant.
the Basque country.
Yes, yes.
Hmm.
So that was like, I came back to Bombay. I did a couple of consulting projects, and then I went to Azur Mendi, I think the next year. And that was a shorter stint. Like, I went there for only about 6 months. That was more of a stage that you would think of. But again, like, it was such a great experience, because I also went to Spain because I wanted to understand meat cooking a lot more. So apart from the sustainability factor, because I felt like as a young cook, you get very involved in, like, plating, and you get very involved in like the finesse of things. But like, meat cooking is something that, you really need to like put your mind to it and learn. And I was very fortunate because as soon as I went there, the chef asked me like, what are you interested in? And I was like, meat cooking. And I was on the meat station for the next 5 months.
And which community do you belong to in India? Like, did you like
So
like
my parents are from UP.
So
So
it's a non-vegetarian home. You've like
I think my dad is like the first generation in his family to eat meat.
huh.
Like my grandmother and my grandparents, I think they were like no onion, no garlic also, like
So
the
the
UP Brahmin family.
UP castes are supposed to be like good cooks of meat and all that. So
Yeah, so I think we belong to like the Brahmin side of the
ah,
state. So no onion, no garlic, no meat in the house.
okay.
But I think my dad changed that somewhere for himself, where he was like, yeah, I'm going to college, I'm going to eat meat. My
Yeah.
mom grew up in a completely different background, where my granddad at some point in his life also owned a poultry farm
Ah,
in Faridabad.
okay.
So, and he was like a traveler. So he liked to like, do different things with his time.
Okay, coming back to
So
Spain and then your meat station.
yeah, so like meat cooking was like even at home, right? Like we grew up eating a lot of chicken,
Yeah.
but like red meat or like braised meats or like the grill was not really a big part of our diet. Or like even when I was in the other restaurants, like I wasn't on the meat station per se.
Hmm.
So when I went to Spain, like that was one of my focuses. So like I was again fortunate enough. I was asked, I told them I was interested in meat cooking, and then they put me on that station for the next 5 months.
Yeah.
So that's when like I had a Korean sous chef who was on my station, and he really like hand-holded, or like whatever you call it. He made sure I learn every kind of meat butchery and
And
cooking there
language
is.
was not a problem, or did you learn Spanish or?
So I did learn Spanish before I went.
But you had a
Wasn't enough.
Korean sous chef, so you would be speaking English, I'm guessing.
No. He used to speak
Korean.
very fluent Spanish. Yeah. No, very fluent Spanish. He was there. He was in Spain for the good part of 10 years, I think. So he was very well versed with the language. He, in fact, didn't speak any English. Our head chef was actually Mexican, so she didn't speak any English. But I, like, even for my internship from college, I went to France, and I was picked out of like the whole batch. Like 3 of us were picked out of the whole batch because we wrote on our form that we had learned French in school. And I was like,
Yeah.
are you sure you want to send me to France because I learned French in school? Because an Alliance Française or like a school 2 years of French is not going to teach you enough to live in France for 5 months. And we learned that the hard way. Because the first month we were in France, we were just like, what are they saying?
No,
Thankfully,
things
one
have
of
changed
us.
now, but back then, like even 4-5 years back in France, it was
Yeah.
very different.
And we were in a small town. We weren't in Paris, or we weren't in a big city. So we were in a small town where like they didn't know English. They didn't have a choice. They weren't like bullying us or anything. And it was the same in Spain. Like we were in Basque country where they don't even speak Spanish. They speak Euskera.
Wow.
So like we were just like, what is this?
But still, you managed, huh?
We managed, yeah. Like I was very comfortable not understanding what they were saying sometimes. They were very comfortable trying to read my mind. And of course it's fun, and it makes the process a little slower. But I guess like in that translation you learn a lot of other things, like life skills. You learn life skills in the process. So yeah, it was a great experience again, like 6 months that I spent there. And of course I would have loved to stay a little longer. Like they had also offered that I can take a position there, but it was literally in the middle of nowhere, and I didn't see myself living in that sort of a setup long term.
So no coffee shop, no movie theater, no.
So we were outside of Bilbao. Bilbao had all of that and more, but we were about 30-minute bus ride, and the closest bar we could even go to was like 2 hills away. So like we had to walk for like 20 minutes to go to a bar.
So no life as a young person, and
yeah. And like of course, like when you're there for 6 months, language is not a barrier. But when you have to live there, you can't keep living translating in your head. Like I remember, when you get stressed out in the kitchen when there's an order or something. They would like any language was coming out of my mouth. Like sometimes I was speaking Marathi, and I was like, I didn't even know I know that much Marathi. So I was like, what's going on? Yeah, exactly. So like, and like
Locker.
everybody, exactly. And I was just like, what's going on? Like, your brain just gets so confused with languages after a point. I was like, no, this can't be a long-term thing. And I remember while I was there, Indian Accent was supposed to open in London. So Chef Manish, in fact, had reached out and he was like, would you like to go? And I was like, of course. So I don't have any background in Indian cooking, but sure, like, it's an opportunity. And for some reason, it didn't work out because of visa issues or whatever. But I landed up in Delhi. So because of that, that's how I got in touch with Vaibhav at Perch.
But
Because
you also worked, I mean, I was going to your website, you also worked in somewhere which organic focus or
so that was while I was still the chef at Perch.
Okay.
You get like 1 month off or whatever. So I was like,
tell us a bit about Perch, because we are sort of Perch regulars now. I live in Bandra, and there's a Perch I believe you helped set up. And we started going there towards the end of the pandemic restrictions.
Okay.
Last November or something. I hope it's last. But so when you went there, you're still a bit not used to seeing people around you. So when you went to the Perch in Bandra, like the first time we did, it's spacious, it's calm, thing. And we were there yesterday afternoon for lunch. And it's got its very distinct identity. It's of course also wine bar and this thing, and we are not wine people, so we go for the coffee and the food. But would love to know, like, how was that?
So Perch was already I think 3 years in when I had joined them. They'd opened their first one in Khan Market. It was like bustling. It was like literally the talk of town. I think they had opened the second one also about 6 months or 8 months before I joined. And that one was a little different than the Khan Market one because it was in a slower market. It was in a more residential area. Vasant Vihar was mostly embassies and expats. So they had a little bit of a, shift to be made between the Khan Market outlet and Vasant Vihar. And Pankaj, who is my batchmate, was with them, who used to be their general manager at the time. And Vaibhav is like a, hospitality and beverage person. So the food part is something where they were like, why don't you come in short term, long term, whatever you want to do and like, help us.
Vaibhav
and I had no idea.
Vaibhav and
he was the owner. He's the owner. So at that time, I had no idea what value I was going to add to that place because it was a very distinctly positioned wine and coffee bar. Like food was not really.
That's the impression one had, which is why one didn't go. Did we just
for a meal?
We went there for coffee, and then we realized, wow, I mean, there's more to it.
Yeah, exactly. So even at that time, I mean, I was like, but you're a wine and coffee bar. Why do you need a chef? And they were like, no, again, like, you can add more value than just to the food. And like, we do need help with a food menu that complements the wine and alcohol. And also someone who can, be front facing, like talking to guests and, talking about the brand and ethos and all of that. And honestly, I went with a very open mind. I had no idea how long, what exactly I'm going to do, what my job description is on paper or anything. But it was a leap of faith. I think it turned out very fruitfully for all of us. I spent almost 3 years in Delhi, which I would have never imagined in my life to do
Bombay,
as a person from Bombay. Yeah, exactly. And I had a great set of friends who were also Perch guests, so it was a nice little bubble. And I guess the only reason to come back to Bombay was that it was life in a bubble. Because like every other city I'd ever lived in, you had that freedom. You want to, on your day off, you want to take a train and go somewhere, you can
in Mumbai,
you want to go explore. Anyway, like whether it was even Bilbao or New York or like, La Rochelle, anywhere, like that freedom was there. In Delhi, there was that inhibition for sure. And although like some of my closest friends from Bombay also lived in Delhi at the time, after a while it got to me. Like I was like, Delhi living is not permanent again. So that jitteriness started again. And that was also the time when I was like, okay, let me explore coming back to Bombay. Let me explore. Like I wanted to study Ayurveda at that time.
Oh.
So I did a course in Ayurvedic nutrition in Dehradun,
Hmm.
after I quit Perch. Because at that time I got into like the nutritional aspect of food, and I was like, oh, this is interesting to me, maybe this is the way forward. And I was like, playing with a lot of ideas.
Starting again. Yeah, so you're talking about Delhi. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think after I decided to move out of my role there, I decided to do this Ayurveda nutrition course, and relay also happened at the same time, because I was like, okay, I want to take a month off. I want to see what else there is to learn. And relay was one of the only restaurants in the world that was 95% organic while still having a couple of Michelin stars.
Wow. And there's in
So
Copenhagen.
Copenhagen. So unfortunately, it shut down during the pandemic. They still have all the other sister brands, but the fine dining could not be sustained for obvious reasons. But I realized the chef had the same kind of issues, because he was a sous chef at Noma for like more than a decade, and the same kind of issues, right? Like when you're in a 3 Michelin star restaurant, just to achieve that perfectionism, you're contributing to a lot of wastage. So his idea was that I want to be using all parts of the animal. I want to be using all parts of the vegetable. I want to be able to source from organic sources. And he realized how difficult it was to source from all organic farms,
Yeah.
which is why he started his own farm. He started his own wine distribution unit. He started his own cheese factory.
Wow.
So it became an ecosystem of its own. And I was so inspired when I came back. I was like, oh my God, I have to do this here. It was
Yeah,
like, I need everything all at once.
No, I got a very sort of maybe silly thing in mind when you said this, but I'll give you a bit of a parallel.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing compared to, of course, what you guys do, but see, when I started blogging, it was a hobby, and I used to work in market research. So I would go and eat like normal people do. So you order whatever you can eat and then write about it. And then, of course, whatever little stuff you're doing in the kitchen or when you're traveling and stuff.
Yeah.
But then when I got more and more into food, and then even professionally or even before that, and then people started inviting you over, and initially it's a lot of fun. And see, I was already in middle management when I was doing it, so it's not that affordability is an issue. But someone's calling you in, and we wanted this thing. But what would happen is, and it still happens, that when people call you for what they call a review, it's not a review really. They'll like lay out everything. So and obviously, if you're a professional doing it day in and day out, and I don't do that, but for people who do, and they also are getting more and more senior and older, you can't eat that, right? So you order, you're given 20 dishes and you have a spoon here, and it just it sort of pains me. Now I understand that it has to be done, like I'm sure you also understand, and that there's 3 Michelin stars and whatever will do that, and which is why there'll be, for every three Michelin stars, there'll be 30 DP restaurants which don't do that. But that's why I sort of would say no to invites, because I'm not in a job which requires me to write that. So I would rather go by myself and say order what I want to, and then that give me an idea of the restaurant or not, because that's how people do it. Or doing at least a pandemic when it was a home chef or a delivered thing, even otherwise.
Yeah.
Like say, your Kiki and Pastor, the set.
Yeah.
Then what happens is that, whatever you don't use, you can still use. Like, for example, the dips.
Exactly.
And all that. But when you go for a restaurant tasting, then you can't say that ye pack kar do, as
exactly.
It is a free mein kha raha hai, which is not for free. You're giving them value, but
exactly.
But yeah, I don't get what you. So you felt that, and I'm sure you at the same time, being a professional, it's not that you were sort of judging the people doing the 3 Michelin stars. It's just that it's not a philosophy you subscribe to, and I think that the world is also I think, changing and shifting, which is good.
Yeah, like I see a lot of people now talking about zero wastage in their kitchens, and and they talk like it almost became a buzzword a couple of years ago.
No,
And
yeah, and to a ludicrous extent, I feel,
yeah,
and I want to call it out here because see, zero wastage. I mean, I don't know if you've seen that in a house. It's a very Maharashtrian dish where there's
yeah,
a fornichi roti. The previous day's
mm,
roti not finished. You shred it and do a tarka. So
yeah,
in Bengal, from the fish to the head to the tail, everything's being consumed. But
yeah,
then I started seeing these people doing zero waste menus, which I think were getting a bit too much. Wo aloo ka
yeah,
peel leke, then make a bhajia. I mean, there's at some point there's a difference between human beings and
yeah,
livestock, right? I mean, then
yeah,
it was
exactly.
going the other extent.
Yeah, so like even yesterday, I in fact was talking to my team because we maintain a wastage report of things, and I was like, it's not possible to serve your guests A1 food of like top-notch quality, and especially Mexican food where a lot of things are raw, like we're making
Yes.
salsas and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was explaining this to them, and I was like, I know there is no way that we can have a zero waste kitchen.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. That idea is you have to be practical, that you
Yes.
can't be
Yes.
serving good quality food and having no wastage at all.
Yeah.
But what we can do is, instead of it going in the bin, and like the same thing I was telling you that my chef had told me when I was much younger, you eat it. If you can't make a wrap out of all the wastage and give it to someone outside at the end of the day, and I'm sure they'll be happier than starving.
Yeah.
Or like we have a little cat now who comes in our building where our kitchen is.
Yeah.
And I was like, give it to her. She eats fish.
Does she eat?
She eats boiled chicken. Yeah, she loves it. And I was like,
our community cats now eat only kibble over here with so many feeders.
no, that one still eats. Like, so if we have like fish skin left from all the filling that we do, we give it to her. And we were having that conversation that zero waste is like it's a buzzword. But
no, it's like these guys who are now saying like taking on the West and all of that for this thing, and they'll be doing it sitting in a room where the AC is on. But
yeah, exactly.
But the thing is that, are you at least making it a point, what my grandpa taught me as a kid, that to switch it off when you're leaving the room?
Yeah.
Or like, if the room is sufficiently cold, are you still keeping it on? I mean,
yeah, and I think it's a way of life. You can't adapt it in one segment and then say, "Acha, but idhar chalta hai."
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, people are paying money for this food, so we have to keep quality in mind first. So of course, I was telling them, like, we were discussing like what are the solutions that we waste a little lesser, if not zero. Like, if you want to prep lesser, if you want to see that weekends are busier and weekdays are a little less, and you prep accordingly. So I was telling them, it's just a game of being mindful.
Yes.
It's nothing else. Whether it is about the consumer, whether it is about the cook, whether it is about the producer, it's all about just like a little mindfulness into what you're doing.
And which is a good buzzword, mindfulness, because you were talking about buzzwords. So mindfulness, I first came across it in the Yoga Institute at Santa Cruz, which I used to go to, or Villa Parle, it's the oldest one. So once I was doing a course there, like otherwise I'd go for this thing. So food was included. And during lunchtime in the canteen, like our teacher told us that take a food, go to any one corner, even if someone's beside you, do not talk, just focus on the food, the taste, smell, everything, and finish it. And that's what's mindfulness. And by then I was working from home. So what I used to do is, when I was in office, at lunchtime I would read the newspaper and eat. So at home I'd switch on the news, TV news. So from that day onwards till today, my lunch, I just eat. Like, even if a newspaper is lying in front of me. So that's mindfulness, right? And then you eat the food when you're cooking. And that's such a big part of the Indian tradition. Like, people talk of hige and ikiban and this, that. But it's our Indian tradition, which, we've forgotten in a way.
And India as a country, and which I talk about also, like a similarity with Mexican food, is that we are a frugal country.
Yes.
So like our grandparents and our ancestors didn't waste. So us coming to a conclusion that, now we need to adopt minimalism or low wastage, We don't have to. It's already ingrained in
No, I
us.
just feel
We
that
just have
sometimes
to,
it's just a marketing talk over here, and you know, it's a bit of a emperor's new clothes phenomena, which I can say now,
for
given
sure.
that I'm writing more about cats than food, so I have no
Yeah.
business to burn in the food industry. But I think some of it is just emperor's new clothes happening out there. You know,
Exactly. And
you know,
sometimes
there's a
it just
regional, and
sounds
you
like,
know, there's never been any regional food in India. We are doing, well, what about all the Malwani joints? What about you know, the
yeah.
Aswads and
And those
if
are
you go to
still
South India,
thriving.
it's Andhra food. If you go to this thing,
Yeah.
what do you mean to say no one's done regional food in the, you know,
Yeah, exactly.
or
I mean,
local
yeah,
markets?
like,
I mean,
you
everyone
know,
goes to Dadar market to buy the stuff, or Bhaji market.
exactly, like supermarkets, if anything, have been adopted,
Yeah,
not the street vendors. So
yeah.
I do feel there is a lot to be learned from like our own traditions,
Hmm.
and not to say that we can't adopt something if it is better,
Of course.
but to say that, you know, we have to adopt zero wastage or like minimal wastage or anything like that, you don't have to look too far, at least.
Yes, yes. No, I
So
think that
it's good.
given the fact that both of us are speaking in English and wearing,
Yeah.
you know, shirt and t-shirt and not like a, you know, so I don't think we can say that we can't take anything from the West. But I think it's this balance, and which you know, which brings me to what you're doing now, because a taco is so much about balance.
Yeah.
You know, the tortilla, the salsas, the filling. So tell me, you came to Perch, Mumbai, and you were setting it up, and then the pandemic happened,
So
and
the idea was that, so I had actually already quit Perch, and I had started working on my idea of opening an Ayurvedic place in Bali. Actually,
wow,
I was I
oh
was quite
wow, that's like full eat, pray, love stuff, huh?
yeah. So I actually went to Bali. Just give me a moment.
Okay, I'll pause. Take your time. Okay, so you were talking of Bali and combining eat and love, at least of eat, pray, love. But yeah.
Yeah, so I was quite enthralled with the idea of, like, you know, setting up a Ayurvedic restaurant in Bali, and for some reason it wasn't working out. Like, I went there, I spent a month, I did a lot of food research, and maybe like when the pandemic hit, I was like, what a great idea that it didn't work out, because I would have been stuck in the middle
Yeah.
of nowhere, all alone, trying
A
to
lot
do
of
this.
people would want to be stuck in Bali.
I don't think they were in a very good position, to be honest. I felt quite bad for Indonesia as a whole.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it didn't work out. I came back, and I was still like, okay, like, should we do it in Bombay? Should we probably do it in Goa? Like, I was still thinking.
And you were
And
thinking of
then
a restaurant then. You were thinking of,
I was thinking of a restaurant.
yeah,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
that's
Like a
your
sit
experience.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Weber from Perch had already started looking at properties in Bombay, because they wanted to open in Bombay. And they were like, oh, since you are from Bombay, you understand the market. Why don't you help us, you know, set this up, and then you can go ahead and do your thing. And I was like, yeah, okay, fine. It's a 6 month, 8 month commitment, not really like something that will take away. If anything, it will add value again. You know, like, I think that has been like the common link in all my experiences, where like I was like, okay, this will add value. This will add value to,
Well, it
like,
also
you know,
helps to have a bit of add a bit of cash to the account also, no? If you want to. No, I
exactly.
mean, honestly, from a practical point of view, like
Yeah,
what I feel is that when I work on projects, then you know, it gives me that cushion to then go in and do stuff like this, which is like
exactly.
projects. So
And that is also why, like, consistently, like, since I've come back from the US, I do take on consulting
yeah,
projects.
I saw that.
Um,
Yeah, why not?
and like, you know, even when Poach was happening, I did like a small stint for Blue Tokai. During the pandemic, I helped this sandwich shop in Delhi open called Tartine. So the consulting projects have been like a very good way of, like, you know, again, like, maintaining the bank balance, but also uh, I- all of them have been like sort of interesting. Like, I felt that Tartine was so helpful for me to understand what like a cloud kitchen or like a small setup
Yes.
needs, you know. So when Kiki and Pastor were to happen, I was like, oh yeah, like, I've done this before. Like, it's not all new. Like,
Yeah.
it's a different city, it's a different cuisine altogether, but it's not all new. So it definitely gives you that kind of experience per se. So yeah, when Perch happened, we were like, I think only 18 days in when the pandemic hit. And like the first 18 days were like complete madness. Like we were doing like 300 covers a night.
Yeah.
Um, it was like, it was madness. It was chaos. Like
Yeah.
we were also like, are we ready for this? And then suddenly it was like dead silence.
Yeah. And
Um,
crazy. Even Subco opened, I think, 3 days before the
yeah,
lockdown.
exactly. Yeah. So I think Subco was still like in its opening phase, because I
Yeah,
remember
it's
all our
three
press
days. It is
articles
just
would
3 days.
come out.
Yeah.
Yeah, all our press articles would come out sort of at the same time. So I do remember Subco also was like, in its opening phase. We were delayed a little bit, they were delayed a little bit. And then finally we opened, and then it was like, now what? And then we had to completely pivot to like a different delivery model. And of course, people who knew Perch from Delhi knew Perch, but it was never looked at as a place that they would order food from.
Yeah.
Like, and especially like
Especially if you're a
coffee or
wine
cocktail.
bar, you go there to drink. Yeah.
Exactly. Like the whole idea was the experience,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
even if you look at the space, like that opulence of just
Oh,
like
yeah.
space you can see was the
And
idea of Perch.
so serene
Yeah.
in Bangladesh. And that's what I'm saying. No? When we went there in November or something like that, or I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was towards the fag end of when things were opening up. I think our nerves were so raw then, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so to go to an atmosphere place like that, and so it was not the places. It was not one of the places which we'd visit because we had
Yeah.
our favorites in Bandra. But we just knew that, okay, if we go here, we are almost like in a bubble.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I think that really worked in the favor of Perch during the pandemic as well, because it was open. There was an outdoor area. People could bring their
Yeah,
pets.
yeah.
Social distancing could actually be maintained between
Yeah.
tables. So it became a good thing, and like I guess that's also why it's thriving, because that kind of a space does not exist in
Yeah.
Bandra or around. And yeah, so when we started deliveries on the 1st of May, I remember. And that time it was still like, oh, you have to have the pass to travel. So we had a very, very small team. We were, I think, 4 people. And like I remember my dog and my mom would come and pick me up and like drop me to work because there were no Ubers or anything.
Scary times, yeah.
So it was kind of adventurous. And then my contract with them was anyway getting over, and I was like, there's no point extending it, because it's not like we were going to come out of the pandemic anytime soon. So I was like, you can go on with this menu, it's fine.
Yeah.
And they did. And whenever like the restaurant dining was able to open, they were able to go back to the old menu and serve food the way that we had originally planned it to
So
be.
did you have to change the menu for Bombay compared to what was there in Delhi?
A lot, yeah. We did a completely different. The sections of the menu were also very different. We did a lot more nibbles. I do know that the menu has changed a lot since like I left, and like Chef
Yeah,
Arun has
but
taken
given the
over.
fact that I was there yesterday, I mean, there
Yeah.
was small plates and then salad.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, so we did a lot more nibbles. We did a lot more small plates. But we did want it to be a neighborhood cafe for people in Bandra to just come and have like their steak or their chicken, grilled chicken at night as well. So we wanted to maintain that balance. The menu is quite different than the one in Delhi. Actually, even in Delhi, the menu at Khan Market and Vasant Vihar are quite different.
Wow.
Because again, it became a very like we didn't want it to be a chain. It had to be very local.
Okay.
It had to serve a purpose for that community. Like Khan Market is a very different area, and people come there for a very different purpose than why they would come to a Vasant Vihar versus why they would come to the Bombay Perch for.
Yeah.
Like I know a lot of friends who like go and work out of the Bombay Perch and probably only have a cup of coffee and that's it.
In fact, the first time I thought of going to Perch was one of our friends' younger son, Rhythm. So he was saying that he would go and work there all day. So
Hmm.
then his elder brother Vinayak, so he's Lost and Hungry Productions and everything.
Yeah. I know
So
Vinayak.
he said that, and they work together. So he said, "Am I paying you too much? You're going and spending." So he said, "No, मैं जाके coffee पीता हूँ." He's like the kid of the family,
Exactly.
the
Yeah, and I
cafeteria.
remember, and at Vasant Vihar, people would, come at about 11 in the morning, start working there, probably have a cup of coffee, probably have a salad for lunch, work till like 4 o'clock, then probably order a glass of wine, then work till 7 o'clock, then probably order a cheese platter, then would have a friend come over, probably have dinner. So I have seen guests
It's almost like a
actually.
club. It's almost
Yeah,
like people would treat it
exactly.
like a club.
So people would like spend the entire length of the day, and Vasant Vihar, you could do that. I remember in Khan Market, our manager used to be like, this person is sitting here for the last 2 hours drinking coffee. And I was like, yeah, it's okay, it's a coffee shop. He's like, no, I'm losing money. I was like, I get that, but you can't say anything, And it was a completely different vibe. But also, if you went to Khan Market, you couldn't spend more than 2 hours there because it's so loud and it's so bustling that you can't literally like sit on your laptop and do work. I'm sure a lot of people still did, like they would put on their headphones and do their thing. But the vibe changed with every location that we were in. So although the brand was still the same, I think the values of the brand was still the same. We did adapt the menu, we did adapt the food and the offerings to where we were. So Bombay was also a part of
Another
that.
one of the earlier sort of experiences for us, which made us go there. And you said you were doing, you guys changed it for the delivery and all that. So we have a friend in Pune, Khuzan, who and his partner Tala, they run La Flemington. So I think during the pandemic, I don't know whether when we had COVID or even before that, I think Kenas had a cold or something, but not COVID. So he ordered, sitting in Pune from Perth using Zomato, tomato soup and a sandwich and stuff. And he said, it's nice. It's okay. Now listen, we are not talking about Perth. So now we're going to talk about who's Kiki and who's Pastor. I remember Kiki from one of her favorite characters in Narcos Mexico, where hardly anyone seemed to have taco. But but he of course was okay. Anyone still yet to watch the first season? Spoilers. But tell us, I mean, someone who's worked in Zodiac Grill and 11 Madison Park and Perch, which also this thing and a place whose name I can't pronounce in the Basque country.
Azurmendi.
Azurmendi. So from there to set up like a cloud kitchen, a delivery kitchen, no front facing. So why this decision?
So I think again, when I was traveling, or even when after Perch, I was running like Eclectic Kitchen from home. You become a little risk averse when you see what's happening to like really good restaurants. Like, I was heartbroken when Qualia shut down. I was really saddened when I heard of a lot of like long running, very passionate projects, like, take such a massive hit. And somewhere it makes you a little risk averse. And I remember again having this...
written about shutting the La 15.
Yeah, exactly. When you see things like that happen and you're like, okay, no amount of insulation from reality can, just make you be like, nay, I can do it, screw all of them, like, mere se kuch nahi hoga. You can't be like that. And of course, I wanted to open the taqueria, and the idea of tacos or the taqueria was on the back of my mind, like it was on the back burner for many years.
But why that? Why not to say a pizzeria or a burger place?
So
why
lived
not
in Spain,
if there's
when I lived in Spain, our Monday ritual used to be to go into Bilbao and eat tacos, because I was surrounded by Mexicans in Spain. So my first experience of eating tacos was actually on my day off in Mexico. So it was a very like comfort food click. And I was like, we don't have that kind of setup in Bombay. The nightlife of Bombay had like completely been drained in the last decade. Like I remember when I used to work at the Taj, like after work, we could go to a Woodside Inn, or we could go to like the local or something, and at least shake it off. But over the last few years, there's nothing that is open. You can either go to a hotel club, and party, or there's nothing. But there's no like drinking scene. There's no like, fast food, like
it's
good
all
scene.
like very, very big fine dine sort of.
Yeah, it's become more restaurants. It's not really like a casual party spot anymore.
Yes.
And I felt like tacos were such a good introduction to like Bombay nightlife. Where like even when I was at Perch, I used to tell them all the time, I was like, we should open a taqueria, you can do the alcohol, I'll do the tacos, and we'll just do food. And make it like, and not to call it a speakeasy, but just make it like a grubby like a local bar, like Toto's, but like make it like fancy,
bigger Totos, and with
bigger Totos, and like have like food centric menu as well, and like focus on the cocktails, but like just have it like a dive bar, like upscale dive bar. So that was an idea that was like just driving me. And I definitely I still today also I believe that would really do well in Bombay, and maybe perhaps in the future it will materialize sometime. But I was sitting on it for a long time, and then I was like, what, I'm consumed by the idea of tacos. I've gone ahead and researched so much now.
and funny thing is that your exposure to tacos was actually in Spain, right?
Yeah.
So not
like Spain and New York as well, but New York was not as much. It was not like it didn't feel as personal at that time. It was just like, okay, one of the cuisines that we've eaten is Mexican food. But in Spain, it became very, very personal, because I used to live with a lot of Mexican cooks as well. So, and I knew I'm not Mexican. I knew like, it doesn't come to me like culturally, it's not the same. But I was like somewhere.
There's a certain.
Yeah, and there was like a certain like, and also I'm someone who can't handle spice myself.
Yeah, same here.
So I'm not someone who can handle very, very spicy food, which is sometimes a feedback that I get from guests. So like we're like, okay, we're working on a hot sauce for you, But when I went to Mexico, I realized like it's not spicy. Not everything is spicy. Not everything is like, it should burn your tongue and palate.
Mexico is the home of the mirchi, no?
It is, but like not everything is like burn spice.
Yeah,
I think they use chilies so well. It's like our masalas, right? Like we use our masalas very measured,
and
some of us
from home to home, and home cooking is so much more different. And
exactly. And so I was like, okay, I'm consumed by the idea. I really want to do it. Instead of waiting for something to materialize, it's better to like start somewhere. So use this, if nothing, as just like a product testing platform. So it started with that. And Rishabh, who's now my co-founder in the project, he and I have been friends since IHM. So we studied together. He left the industry maybe within a year or so. Like he was like, I don't like service and I don't like the industry. So he was into marketing. He was into branding. He was into like consumer facing products. And so, we've been talking for a long time, and, he was like, okay, how do you want to do it? Where do you want to do it? Like restaurant, delivery, or whatever. And we were like, Asha, let's just do it. Like it was just like a conversation, like what's the harm? Like what do we have to lose here? So like, at least if nothing, we'll do product testing, right?
Yes.
And like, if it works, we'll open the restaurant. If it doesn't work, we'll shut the delivery, because you have this like what you were also saying in the beginning of our chat, that so many Mexican restaurants have opened in Bombay but not really survived. And that was a ringing question that we kept getting, that why are you doing Mexican doesn't work in Bombay. And I was like, I don't see any reason why it shouldn't work in Bombay, or in India for that matter. Like I don't see why it should fail. If there is a hidden reason that it is failing constantly through so many enterprises, let's find out why.
Yeah, it's very strange, because on the one hand you have the cream center version of Mexican, and the nachos and all that in PVRs, but somehow it's just not.
Somehow it's not. I don't know now if it's a consumer thing or it's about like the people who've done it in the past. Like maybe I feel like people have not given say just Mexican food a chance. Everybody has tried to make it Latin American. Everyone said like, okay, let's also add a ceviche and let's also add some Peruvian influence, where I was like, but why aren't tacos enough? Like I get it, like you can't eat it every day of the week, but now like when I look at our order patterns, we have people who order every other day.
And I can imagine because there's so much variety. The moment you change a filling or the moment you play around with your mole or the salsa, it becomes a completely different
dish. And even
it's
if
far
you
more
want to have a
versatile
taco,
than the rolls of Calcutta, because there it has to be egg, chicken, mutton. I remember something that opened in Bombay 20-25 years back, Charongi Scare, and they put cheese, the potato, mushroom, and all that. But your notion of a roll is so ingrained in you that you can't. While I was seeing a program on tacos in Mexico a few years back, where they were saying that each immigrant is now bringing in their own flavor. So Arabian tacos, and there's a Korean tacos, and
and so like even the al pastor, it was
who's al pastor? Sorry, I'm going to complete like an nincompoop or illiterate. But who's al pastor? Is he also your partner?
So now it's become like a joke, like I'm Kiki and he's Pastor, like that's the joke. But the name came up as, so it has different connotations. So Kiki was also the nickname that people used to call me by when I used to live in Goa, because they couldn't say Kartikeya. It was too difficult. So they used to say Kiki. So that was
India.
one.
So it's not that you got it in
India.
Spain or
No.
In Goa, you got it.
In Goa. And then Kiki also means in Latin American and in like in African American connotations, it also means a get together. So Kiki and Pastor technically translates to a get together over tacos, and al pastor if you go to Mexico City is considered like the best taco. That's why it's called al pastor, like it's the best.
Okay. So al pastor means best. It's not a kind of taco, but it's
a kind of taco. No, it's a kind of taco. Like the one on the shawarma grill, that's al pastor. But they say like it's the mejor taco, like it's the best taco. So they call it the al pastor. So right. So it's like so the name.
It's like the bara kebab of Bukhara. It's the best kebab.
Exactly. So like it's like, of course, it's like self-proclaimed, but it's al pastor. So the idea was to say a get together over the greatest of tacos is Kiki and Pastor. So that's where it originated from. Again, like the name has been in my mind for the last 2 years. Like whether it was going to be a delivery joint, whether it was going to be a takeout joint, whether it was going to be a dine-in, nobody knew, but the name was always there. It was in place. And I was quite thankful that when I pitched it to Rishabh, he was very happy. He was like, yeah, I love the name. It makes sense. So I was like, okay, fine, it works. And so he handles the branding. He's actually sketched our logo himself.
Wow.
So he handles the branding, he handles the marketing. I take care of the kitchen. Wow. So we have our designated roles in the organization. And
now you have a staff also. You were saying your cooks and all of that.
So we have a small team now, because also we also showcase ourselves as an events and delivery tech area, not really just delivery. Because again, like I was mentioning, for me, tacos are like chaat, right? Like you need to be
have it.
Eating them fresh. So we focus a lot on events. So whether it is just doing the farmers market at Geo World Drive, or it is doing catering at people's houses, we prefer that, because we get to showcase it right there. And also that's why we've not pivoted to that DIY kit anymore, is because like I realized even when I was sending it out, when I was doing eclectic kitchen from home, that the amount of filling you put or the salsa you put, like of course people can make their own, but like how as a chef you would want it to go out, there's somewhere like you want to hold on to that. So we do a lot of things.
We are more a DIFM country. Do it for me.
Exactly. And people are very happy for us to send it to them, or we send one of our team members and they set it up for them. And caterings are a great way to enjoy tacos, I feel, because they're also bite-sized, right? You don't have to like grab a plate and like do the whole hack. So we've focused a lot on catering. Now the season is also coming up.
How's that working for you? The catering?
It's been very good. Like,
so you yourself go as well to the catering events?
Sometimes. So one of our very first events, it was quite surprising for us. Like 2 weeks in, and we were contacted by a guest, and she said, me and my friends want to do a reunion after high school, and we're planning on booking Max Street Kitchen, and we want you to come cook there. And we were like, really? We were 2 weeks old. And she was like, yeah, but like it sounds like fun. And like we don't want like fine dining food. You can do like Mexican food. You can do course-wise if you want. But yeah, we just want to keep it like a light Sunday brunch. And we were like more than happy. So we took our whole team, and that time we were literally just 3 people. So we took our team, we set it up there. There were 40 guests. And it was a riot. It was amazing. Like we did, I think we did 10 courses.
Wow.
Like completely Mexican. Obviously, a lot of things were off the menu because it had to be a Sunday brunch. So they wanted huevos rancheros, they wanted chilaquiles, they wanted, different desserts, they wanted cocktails. So we did all of that, and we realized, oh, this is a great way to interact with each other also, because Mexican food takes away the fuss from dining.
Yeah, it's not that which fork you're using or which knife and which spoon.
Exactly. And it was one of our first catering experiences, one of our biggest so far also. And after that also, we've catered for people's birthdays, we've catered for people's housewarming parties. So it didn't really matter how big an event or how small an event it was, because if someone wanted just tacos, we've done that. If someone wanted the entire menu, we've done that. We've done like delivery caterings also, where we didn't have to send anyone. We just like put together packages and send it out for board meetings. So we've been able to adapt. We're also thinking of doing some pop-ups.
I want to ask you one thing about adapt, that given the fact that it's an international foreign cuisine or whatever, does that become a problem? Like ingredients, like do you have to get a lot of ingredients from abroad?
So we get all our chilies from Mexico. Thankfully, we have suppliers now who are importing it. One of the challenges we have faced is I really wanted to do masa. I wanted to do the corn tacos, and I went to Mexico with the aim of learning how to make masa. So I went to Puyol's taqueria, and they make their masa fresh every day. So I went out and I asked the chef if I can do like a 1-day stage there, and she was more than happy. And the idea was to do that here, but with the delivery model, the corn tacos really don't stay. And secondly, just getting that corn, because you can use the maseca flour, but it has that undertone of bitterness, which is just not pleasant. So that had to be like a big let go for me. Like I had to let go of the idea of saying that we're going to do corn tortilla. So we do it for events. Again, when we do caterings and when we do events, we do masa corn tortillas for them. But for the day-to-day, we are like, okay, fine, we'll start with the flour tortillas. Whenever and however it materializes that we can do masa, we'll do that as well.
Okay, now tell me, one of my last questions is that you've worked a certain way for the 10 years you worked or more?
Yeah,
because you said 11,
yeah.
12, so about 10, 12 years.
Yeah.
Which is a significant part of one's career. And then you moved into a completely different format, the delivery kitchen and all that. And I, for example, moved after 15 years of being in corporate and market research into being a freelance. And it took me a bit of time to adjust, to be honest. So how did you handle that situation? Are there any learnings from your past which helped you? Is this something which you want to share with people who are making career changes now? Because a lot of people are.
I think one of the things that I had to channel, and I really had to talk to myself, was to let go of that idea. Like, just because you have a preconceived notion of how your next 3 years are going to pan out, or what life should look like when you're 30, or when when you've reached a certain stage in your career, that's like, you have to be okay to adapt. And I think the pandemic taught all of us that in a hard way. But still, like, I remember having this conversation with one of my sous chefs when I went back to EMP last year for a meal. And I was talking to him and he's like, oh, what are you up to? And this and that. And I was like, I honestly don't know, because I've really, sat on this idea for so long now. It feels silly to just let it go. But I don't know how it's going to materialize. And he's like, don't worry, everyone has become risk averse, so you don't have to feel bad about it. And it's okay to go back and take a job. So, because I remember he quit EMP to do something of his own. And 6 months later went back to the restaurant saying that not yet. It's not time yet. And he was like, it's okay to go back, and it's okay to say that, yeah, it's not the way you had planned it, or it's not the way that you had envisioned it to look like, but this is what it is, and it's okay. So I think for someone like me who has always been like, acha, next I want to do this, acha, next I want to do this. It was a really like a conversation I had to have with myself and be like, it's okay. This is not like you're not just managing a situation. You're like doing something completely different, and it will have its own set of challenges, and that's fine now.
I think it's wonderful that you brought that out, because often it's a conversation which one has to have with oneself, because we carry all these perceptions about what my my peers will think, my colleagues will think, my family, my friends, and all of that, or I've done this and this is what I should do next. That I think that weighs us down from like for whatever's worth. I think over the last 2 or 3 weeks, for me has been a big change in mindset, where I realized that, okay, what I want to do is just right. And then, that gives me a lot of peace of mind, because now when I sit in the morning in my laptop, then I'm not thinking that, okay, if I'm just sitting and blogging or writing a project which I'm done, am I going and getting an influencer gig or whatever? Because I said, okay, that's not what I'm doing now. I mean, I used to do that. The market, if things completely change, and the only thing is, in my case, the change happened before the pandemic. So I went through a pretty rocky times emotionally then, but which also meant that by the time the pandemic happened, I was sort of prepared for it. But for a lot of people, it was completely unexpected, and for the whole world. So I think that okay, so the last question which comes in an interview, like as cliched as what did you learn from that experience, but what next? I mean, what is it that as a chef, as an entrepreneur, as a leader now of people, how do you see yourself? What do you want to achieve next or do next?
I was actually discussing this with my partner like a few days ago, and we were talking about it, like what not only what next, like what am I like even thinking of. And I was like, in whatever space I am today, the idea is to create impact. So whether it is just Mexican food, whether it is just delivery model, whether it is just the food landscape of Bombay, or bringing any international cuisine here. Like, I'm not Mexican. I can't become like a torchbearer of Mexican cuisine, but I am willing to learn, and there's no stopping that at any age or any point of time.
In fact, you actually spent your own money to go to Mexico and get that experience, right?
Exactly.
And so, or something you went
exactly, and it was not like I went because I needed that to legitimize something,
get a job, or
or even like it was just so that somewhere in my head I feel authentic about what I am doing.
Yes.
So the idea is to create that impact, whether with Kiki and Pastor, whether with our events, whether with just people saying that it feels good. Like, I've never been to Mexico, but it tastes good. Like, we don't need it to be authentic. We don't need it to be mind blowing, traditional Mexico. We are not bringing Mexico to Bombay. We are doing what we can do to make it feel like that. And as long as people are happy, as long as people are enjoying it, that's fine for us. And even going forward, I feel like whether this materializes into a brick and mortar, or whether we continue to do pop-ups with people, the idea is to create that joy through this avenue of food, where like that was my vision, even with bringing the taqueria to Bombay. that,
Wow.
I miss the nightlife in Bombay. I miss that kind of socializing where you don't have to be, dressed up, or you don't have to be in like a fancy restaurant, or you don't have to be in a club to be like part of the nightlife
I mean, I,
landscape.
I remember that from my early days in Bombay, maybe in
Yeah,
90
yeah,
and early 2000s. You know, Crystal and Gokul and Leopold is a bit
exactly,
different from your, Woodside Inn and all that. Woodside Inn then was a
exactly.
vegetarian place in Colaba, but
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, okay, if we can create any sort of impact to the dining landscape, to the nightlife landscape, to the food, to the, just people's meals, or people's, the way people look at Mexican food also. I feel like because of how Mexican food has been put out in the last few years, also people's mindset towards Mexican food has changed.
yes.
So I think, yeah, to create any sort of value add is important to me. Like with all the experiences that I've been able to gather over the last decade or so, that is definitely a big part of why we're doing this.
But how wonderful, because first of all, I one takeout which I got from your life is a flexibility, which you've perhaps not really highlighted that much, but different countries, different people, different states of different types of working,
Yeah.
and all of that, and then different ways of working, like setting up your thing, and I mean, the very clarity in terms of wanting to create impact, value, and most of all joy. So, like for example, last evening when we tried your Navratri taco.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there's a Navajo taco. I don't know, but Navratri taco must be like, people in Mexico must also be wondering. But the first time around when we tried it, my wife was out of town, so I'd also ordered it for our neighbors and stuff. But
Yeah.
yesterday she was, so she just finished working, and so had I, and I was very hungry. She had a meeting after that, and food came in, and we just opened the box, and I got two saucers and a knife and fork to do one by twos, and we were just sitting and eating, and we were chatting. Neither of us are, experts on taco or stuff like that, and we enjoyed the food, and then there was the guac, and I said, "Acha, ye acha hai, there are two boiled eggs in the fridge, so tomorrow morning I'll that in a sandwich." And then there were corn chips, and we were like this thing, and then okay, where is the guac? But what it did create was maybe 20 minutes of a nice sort of joyous chill time out before we got back to our meetings and
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
like that, or preventing our elder cat from peeing in the kitchen sink, which he did yesterday. Baby, don't around. But yeah, I mean, I think that's finally what matters, that creating impact and joy. So
Yeah.
wish you all the best, Kartika. Thanks so much for talking
Thank you so much.
so candidly and spending so much time with us. I'm not going to edit that because I think it's a interesting story. And wish you all the best. And
Thank you so much.
absolute pleasure. And so for people who want to order in Mumbai, or people from outside who want to order for people in Mumbai, you can do it through your website or Swiggy and Zomato.
Yeah, we have our own direct website,
So
which
that's
obviously
that's
we
always
prefer.
good. Yeah.
Yes.
And you
And
deliver across the city, or are there certain limits?
so we do have a free delivery system for I think 7 to 10 kilometer radius from Bandra.
Ah,
And post that, we have the option where guests can choose the pickup option on our website, and then they just book their own Be Fast or Dunzo or whatever.
lovely.
So we do deliver anywhere in the city. A lot of people like to even come pick it up. So
Yeah.
we do that as well, that they can
Oh, okay.
come curbside and pick it up. We've
Where's
seen a lot
that?
of people
Where's
just
your kitchen sort of?
our kitchen is Car 7th Road and 33rd Road intersection.
Okay.
So it's what people used to call the Juna Khar market, where the old garment market of Khar is.
Okay. Okay.
So
Okay.
we're there.
Okay.
So it's quite a convenient location for us because we get a good radius towards Andheri also till about, I think, Lower Parel is what we
Yeah,
have
I
delivered
think
till.
Dadar for minimum, because I remember when I used to work in Dadar and
Yeah.
drive down, and I think our first Santro. So then you also see your mileage and this that. So home to office, which is Matipin in this thing was about 7 kilometers. And if
Yeah.
you want to do caterings with you, how do they get in touch? Email you guys or
We have a
Instagram or-
number on our website as well, and we have it on Google as well. So people can just reach out directly, and whatever the catering needs are, we can tailor make a menu and design it for them.
And only Bombay, or you're okay to travel across? And have you done any?
We've actually not yet. We are in talks with doing some pop-ups in Delhi.
Awesome.
So hopefully once we've done that, we'll feel more confident about even taking up smaller caterings there.
Awesome. That's absolutely lovely. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Faizan.
Yeah. After all this taco talk, I think I'm going to go and order some tacos. But yeah, it's beautiful.
Awesome.
Thank you.